model of the brain, and while the precise information here has been debated, this is approximately the absorption that gets into the head of a 5-year-old. And this is about the absorption here on the blue line.
Well, that establishes there's more absorption for
right.
Wait a minute. That just answered the question. That establishes more absorption from a 5-year-old. But that's not my question. My question is, what is the strongest evidence you have that exposure to a cell phone causes cancer?
All right. The process of cancer arises from many different insults to our DNA, the basic building blocks of our genetic material inside our cells. Researchers have shown that radio frequency signals at exactly the same wavelength of those of the new phones can cause heat shock proteins. Those are proteins that the body forms in response to stress, and those have been shown in cancer research.
Wait a minute. We don't have time for a treatise. We have 5 minutes.
Okay, I think I can do it in 5 or less.
No, just answer my question. What is the strongest evidence you have that exposure to a cell phone causes cancer?
The work that's been done on the COMET assay that shows double-strand breaks in DNA after exposure to cell phone radiation is very strong evidence experimentally. If we tie that with the human studies of Dr. Sadetsky and others that have looked at people who have 10 years of exposure or more, we put them together and we have strong evidence.
Well, Dr. Sadetsky has testified that you see something after 10 years, but she says that there are so few involved that she can't draw a scientific conclusion. Is that an accurate statement, Dr. Sadetsky?
Regarding the 10 years, yes, but first of all, I would like to say that I'm not sure that there is an association. I cannot be sure based on the current epidemiological data. But what worried me was that in my study I saw consistent positive results, and they always appeared where there is biological plausibility. They did not appear in this group or in that group. They appeared in the more than 10 years. They appeared on the same side where the phone was held. They appeared for the heavy users, and they appeared in rural areas compared to urban areas. And this also has biological plausibility because where antenna is more dense, then the exposure is lower. So the fact that all of these indications appeared where they should have appeared told me that it was a really red light. But as a scientist, this is not enough, definitely not for causality, but it's indication that, according to my judgment, is enough in order to advise the precautionary principle.
As a scientist, it's not enough to conclude a causal connection. Is that right?
Right. For causal association, the criteria are much more strict.
Dr. Hergreich, you testified that the evidence does not demonstrate a connection between a cell phone and cancer. Now, it is much harder to prove a negative, but what would your answer be? Does the evidence demonstrate that there is no connection between a cell phone and cancer?
You've made an important observation. I think the evidence...
I haven't made an observation. I've asked a question.
All right.
I'm not having much luck with answers, but that's my question.
I think the strongest evidence is not any single study. The strongest evidence is that there is a body of research where we've looked at whether certain studies that showed anything can be replicated, whether we've looked at consistency across studies, and where there have been more than 40 animal studies that use different measures to assess the long-term risks. The evidence doesn't come from any single study. The evidence comes from a careful review, looking at the strengths and weaknesses together and putting the data together. This is supported by the fact that the Interphone studies, as Dr. Sadetsky states, taken together are kind of strongly not showing an association between use and cancer. So the answer...
Do not strongly suggest a showing between the use and cancer.
It doesn't show.
But that's not a demonstration that there is no connection.
Exactly. What's important is that in the background context of what we know about the nature of the signal, the strength of the signal, how it interacts with cells, there's been research going on with this for over 50 years, although the research in the last 20 years is, of course, used improved methods and is more definitive.
I was once involved in a hearing which had a similar question. The question was, is there evidence that there was no conspiracy on the assassination of President Kennedy? You don't see the connection, but proof of a negative is very, very different from the proof of a positive.
Exactly.
And when you boil it all down, what I hear is not a whole lot of disagreement in this matter. You, Dr. Ehrenreich, say that there is so little question, in fact, there's no issue of risk at all that you wouldn't take any precaution. I find that...
It's
no, wait a minute, I'm not finished. When I finish, I'll give you a question, I'll pause. But where you end up with all the verbiage, you do not say that the evidence demonstrates there is no connection. Isn't that a fair statement of your testimony?
It is part of that is a fair statement.
Which part is it?
The part that I said there's absolutely no risk whatsoever.
That wasn't part of my question. That was an observation before.
Your statement that it's very hard to prove a negative is really on
Let's
target.
go back to my question. Isn't a fair summary of your testimony that there is no, the evidence does not demonstrate the absence of any connection between exposure and cancer?
The evidence does not. Excuse me, I have to take just the liberty of rephrasing.
No, I'll do that.
Oh, please.
The evidence does not demonstrate that there is no connection between the use of the cell phone and cancer.
You had said the evidence does not demonstrate that there's no connection. Is that what you meant to say? I'm sorry.
I'll repeat it to you. A fair statement of your testimony is that the evidence does not demonstrate that there is no connection between the use of the cell phone and cancer.
The scientific evidence could never demonstrate a total no connection.
And I take your answer to be correct. Well, let me tell you where I come out, because this hearing has run very long, but it's been, I think, very worthwhile. What comes through to me is that we just don't know what the answer is. Dr. Sadetsky raises a lot of red flags, but she says, well, it's not whether we use cell phones, but how we use them. She's not advocating not using cell phones. And Dr. Davis, who drew almost as much applause as Senator Harkin, made the comment that she's not alarmed, but she's concerned. And the issue of the precautions, I think, comes through to me, with the exception of Dr. Ehrenreich's testimony, that precautions are worth taking. Certainly more worth taking than the precautions I undertake to not eat sugar or white flour out of concern for feeding into cancer. And that precautions are not a bad idea. They may not be a good idea, but they're not a bad idea.